Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 8 of season 3 of Draft Strickland. It's me again, your boy, Prez, aka No Stress, because I have no bracket. That's the approach I took this year. Prioritize my pockets and my mental health, and I'm enjoying the tournament that much more because of it. To help me talk about what's going on in the tournament, and some other prospects who maybe Knicks fans are getting too excited about or not excited enough about, I have a special first time guest. I don't know when this man got on Twitter, but he popped into my timeline sometime in the last year. And every season, every draft cycle, there's like one or two or three draft accounts that just kind of pop up as draft Twitter continues to grow and grow and grow. And a couple always stand out. And I'm like, I need to talk to these people so I can steal their insight and make it my own. And that's exactly what happened in this situation with our guest today, Cam from the Only One podcast. You can find him on Twitter at Only One Podcast, but with two T's at the end, where he's often talking about the NBA draft, the NFL draft, probably other drafts I don't even know about. Cam, how's it going? Thank you for joining us.
Hey, how you doing, man? Hey, appreciate it. Really do. It's probably only our, I think, third appearance on any other pod other than our own. So I'm excited, man. I really appreciate this.
We gotta spread the word, man. We gotta get that follower count up because your insights are helpful. Like you can tell from when you watch it, from not watch it, from when I like just read your tweets and shit that uh you're very the A you watch ball and then B the takes are measured with a couple of hot takes sprinkled in. Like it's very, and we'll get into this with some of the guys I want to talk about, but it's especially if you're coming at it from like my perspective or the perspective a lot of the people on I talk to are who are Knicks fans, right? Like with the Knicks, there's a very specific kind of player that most Knicks draft heads want from this draft. So you can just talk yourself into that kind of player. And then it becomes like an echo chamber
Right.
because everybody else is like, oh, yeah, fuck, that's right. Like, yeah, let's talk about Max Lewis. Or I'm just using him as an example. But like, it's
Yeah, he's
sometimes
a
good
great
to bring
example.
in
Yeah.
people from outside of the weird Knicks internet universe, which is a very crazy place. So hopefully you can talk some sense into me and to our listeners today.
Yeah, and this is something I really look forward to. Talking to a diehard fan, not necessarily talking to like a guy who we just talk about the draft in general. I really do want to hear about different fans, what their team needs look like between themselves as far as a fan base.
Yeah, it's I really like I try to make the draft stuff that I write for the Strickland so that anybody can read it, but ultimately like it is a Knicks fan site, so that is pretty hard to take that hat off sometimes. And doing it from the perspective of a particular team is a lot different from if you don't have a favorite team and you're just doing it to do it. It's it's like pros and cons, right? You get the echo chamber, but you're also like when you find something that you want to learn about or a type of player that you think might be important, you just latch on and just go full 100% like deep dive, full nerd out. And that's how you end up with me writing fucking 5,000 words about Usman Jiang last year for our website. And then we fucking trade out of the draft entirely, which is anticlimactic womp womp. But I regret nothing. It's just how we are.
if I can add something,
Yeah.
man, I really like that fit for him and y'all just because he could play next to Barrett. And it's a splash kind of pick because if he works out, now you got a 6'11", 6'10" kid that can 3-level score, handle it, defend. You got a special player, rather than you guys stick with the safe kind of. Oh, I'm like you gonna
Mm-hmm.
get a 6'5" toolsy guard that was a junior in college or something, stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's the give and take. Like on the one hand, part of me It's like, fuck, why don't we just swing for the fences? But then on the other hand, I kind of understand where they're coming from, because like you put an 18-year-old out there, like who's gonna play in front of someone? He's almost certainly taking minutes from someone better than him, which is like, again, the payoff is big. But if you're trying to win right now and prove your, like, until this season, the Knicks were still kind of in that weird, like, sort of trying to prove themselves as competent, but like we don't know what the fuck happened last year, so I'm sure everybody else around the league is like not sure what exactly was going on in there. So
Yeah,
so I
you're
kind of
right.
get it.
You're right. I mean, I try to always remember that someone like when I do mocks and when I do like advice for other teams, I usually just always remember like the guy whoever's making a decision, whoever the multiple people are trying to make a decision, they need to keep their job. Right.
Yep. It's easy for
So
us on our fucking couches or whatever.
yeah, it's easy for me, on my on my couch trying to tell them, oh, you guys should have swung for Shaden Sharp. With like, well, he's not gonna get any burn. He's not. You can't justify him playing over this four guards you guys already have. So, or like Usman Jang, who's like, well, yeah, you love him, but can you justify playing him over whoever you guys do play at the three? Because you guys run Grimes, and Barrett, right, next to Brunson.
Yeah, that's the starting lineup. And then now
And
that
a
we
lot
have
of
Josh,
quickly,
yeah, now that we have Josh Hart, like we
and
don't,
then Josh
and
Hart gets in there. Yeah,
yeah, we don't really have anybody. Like we have Obi, who's the backup four, who
yeah,
kind
he's
of
more
like,
forward. Yeah, he's more of a forward in my opinion.
yeah, no, he is 100%, because him and Hart are not quite big wings. They both kind of like do a little bit of those big wingy things.
Yeah, they make up for the difference type deal. I know exactly
Yeah,
what you're talking about. Yeah,
and then especially Hart, because he's like 6'4", 6'5", but he might as well be like 6'9", with
yeah,
how he
he's
hoops.
an elite rebounder. So
Yeah. So a lot of the times, like sometimes Grimes will take like the Tatums or whatever. Sometimes it'll be Hart. Sometimes it'll be RJ. One of the one of the things I was actually afraid of was like, now that we have lots of players who are deserving of minutes, it's kind of on Tibbs to read the game and then be like, this is the call for crunch time. Like RJ's going to play, or Quickly's going to play, or Hart's going to play, or like they can't all play in crunch
yeah,
time. So he has to just push the buttons. And I hate on Tibbs as much as anybody, but he's been doing a pretty great job of figuring that out lately, which is cool.
uh, he's figured it out, but I feel like he's doing exactly what Tibbs usually does, right? You always gonna look good in the regular season.
Yeah. But last year, some of us didn't even know what Tibbs would do, because it was like last year was like peak Tibbs, when he was like, I'm not sure about these young guys, so I'm just not gonna play them.
He's not gonna
Now,
play. Yeah,
now it's like super Tibbs, where the young guys, through different circumstances, have proven themselves. Right? He had the stretch when Brunson was out, where IQ was playing like 100 minutes per game, so IQ is good in his book now. Um,
yeah.
Grimes good in his book now. Even Deuces played 25 minutes the other
I
day.
was just about to
So
talk about Deuce. That's crazy. I was about to bring Deuce up because when you guys drafted him 2 years ago, I was like, man, where's his minutes gonna come from?
yeah,
And then now that you guys drafted Grimes right over him, and then you guys signed Brunson, it's like, when is he ever gonna play again?
yeah, he's definitely the one who's right on the fence of the rotation, because Tibbs usually goes with 9, and
Yeah,
other teams will go with 10. So he pretty much only plays now if someone is out or taking a rest day, or they really need a spark. And that's one of the actually that's as good a place to start as any. So one thing that I want to kind of write about and research about, but I'm also too lazy, is like, so when you're drafting a player, and they like, how do you personally feel about, like, you can draft a player and develop them without playing them? Because some people are like, yeah, you can, they're not going to stay on the bench forever, right? Maybe their first year. Other people are like, you should make time for them no matter what. Other people are like, that's why we got the G League, use the G League. Other people are like, yes, but the G League is not the same as the league. So like, I kind of feel like you need minutes, but it's kind of one of those weird things where I don't know if it's a self-fulfilling prophecy where like the players who were drafted high just get minutes because they were drafted high. So that's not really evidence that necessarily like they needed those minutes. It's just you the third pick, then you're gonna fucking play. Like that's it.
Yeah. I guess it starts from when you draft them, right? So you have to think about some teams are very prescriptive like that. Like if they draft a guy in the first round, they expect him to be able to start. Some other teams are like, I don't care if we got him second. If he's not ready, he's not ready. You know, stuff like that. But then, you know, the other team would look at them and be like, well, why did you draft him if you pick two? Why'd you draft him at 2 if you wasn't going to play him immediately, right? And but I think it's really case by case. There's too many variables to go into to really say. That's why a lot of people, when they have their hot takes, they also have just bad takes littered in there. That's why I don't really listen to what they say because they're so prescriptive. Like they refuse to, you know, kind of adjust their takes or adjust their philosophy. Like,
yeah, that's probably the right approach to just take it case by case. I know, like, you can tell which teams kind of fall into different parts of the spectrum for certain teams. Like for the Knicks, it's pretty clear that like at least where they're at right now, they're like, we're not drafting you. Like even guys like Deuce and IQ and Grimes, like they've all had times when they didn't play much, but they were all capable of playing. Like if the situation called for it, they could step in and it wouldn't be a shit show, which is like clearly one of the big things for the Knicks. Meanwhile, other teams, like you mentioned Shaedon Sharpe, like Portland is okay just giving him 20 minutes. They trade for Cam Reddish, who's only, whatever, 22, 23. And they're like, okay, you're going to start now. Like, I'm sorry, but like, that's great for their development. But that might not help you. That might not help Dame get to the playoffs on, you know, this season by having those guys play like 30, 40 minutes. So, but they're okay with it.
Why, yeah. You're right. Yeah. They're definitely not going to get them any wins in the playoffs. That's why as an organization, I feel like the great ones are always weighing. It's always a lot of options weighing, right? So it would be, all right, well, do we sign Cam Reddish and just play Shaedon 20 minutes, or do we try to find us a real 3? That's why they were in the OG Anunoby sweepstakes.
Yeah,
for that exact reason. Because they're like, well, he has to be about that good to be better than whatever we could just grab from another team or play another young guy, right? But stuff like that is why when people say fit, they don't really understand how important the word fit is, right?
Yeah.
the word fit is actually extremely important. Like Shaedon, for example, because we're talking about him, he also wouldn't work on the Knicks. He would play exactly the same as how he looks on the Trailblazers because he doesn't have a lot of minutes for him. He doesn't have a lot of minutes. Whereas if he went to the Wizards, who are starving for anything in the perimeter that looks good other than Beal, right? It's like, well, if Shaedon would play next to Beal, and he looked like a potential All-Star early.
Yeah, kind of like what we see with with Mathurin in DC, where like they're bad, but there's minutes. Yeah, exactly. Jalen's another good one.
Neither of them are more talented than Shaedon, but they were given an opportunity, and guess what? They're great players.
Yeah, Jalen was the one I thought who could like walk the line for the Knicks as contribute now and upside, and I was probably right, but I'm still not that bad at it. I'm happy he's flourishing over there because I'm still rooting for him.
Last year, I wasn't as into the draft as I am this year. I probably actually really studied this draft cycle, but I paid attention to it enough. And I would always have Usman Zayn going to the Knicks because he's that change of pace you guys need. You guys need something. Y'all need something, that looks scary, that's tall on the wing. Y'all don't have anybody that's scary and tall on the wing.
That's true. Yeah, there's a lot of Knicks fans who agree with you, man. Like some of the people who write for our site, my guy Stacy, who co-hosts one of our podcasts, he was banging the drum. He was like, "Do it, draft the 6'10", fucking do it all wing who's 18, but will get stronger and all that stuff." And I get it. I was right there with him, and that's one of the reasons why this draft is super interesting to me because I mean they're not all like his height, because he's really tall, but
He's absurd.
there's definitely a good amount of wings kind of scattered about. But real quick before we get to that, I'm just curious, what made you get more into the draft this year? Was it just like you felt like it randomly, or you wanted to do the pod?
What happened was the year before, so 2 years ago, so that Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green draft.
Mm-hmm.
I found Fanspo.
Oh yeah,
I found Fanspo, but that was when it was called. What was it called before that? It was called something else before that. Like this Fanspo actually a new name for it. It was called something else before that. I forgot. Wow,
I only learned about Fanspo this year. I'm like old and washed, so
yeah. So and they let you just make your own NBA big board.
Mm-hmm.
And they have like all the prospects on there. And so I was like, I got to mess around with that. I really got to, and I would just like I'd just be chilling. I would just be thinking about the draft, right? Like once we would play video games or something, I'd be thinking about the draft or something, right? So I'm like, wow, I'm about to make a Twitter and see like what Twitter is like. See if I can talk to some draft minds. Like that would be fun. Like that'd be a great idea. Talk to like legit people that talk draft, right?
Mm-hmm.
I made a burner. And I was like, this is not fulfilling enough. Like, it really wasn't. I was like, I'm about to make a podcast. I think all these people to make a podcast. I'm about to make a podcast.
Yeah, like I could do this shit better.
And sure enough, I'll pop in there, like you said. I'll pop into everybody's algorithm.
That's how you know you do it.
You telling me that I'm one of the better accounts out there. Like that's love. This is all homegrown.
That's awesome, man. I love to hear it. Like with team specific people, it's always it's much more direct, right? It's like, oh, a lot of Knicks fans got into the draft, like really got into the draft when we were dog shit in the Kristaps year. And then there was like another wave of Knicks fans that got into the draft when we were dog shit in the Zion RJ year, right? So stuff like that is like gives more fans reasons to pay attention to the draft because it's where hope goes to blossom and you could get a future MVP or something like that. But for other people, it's just like, I wonder if I could predict who's going to be good. That seems interesting. And that's kind of how it started for me, like way the fuck that back then when I was in college. And I don't even remember what draft that was. This was like when Draft Express and stupid NBA Draft Net were like the only websites. But enough about the old times. That's just
there's some
cool
ego in there too, though, right? That's when you said just predicting who's going to be good. There's some ego in there, when it comes to being like, I said this guy was going to be good. He ended up being good. I need a front office job.
It's not unlike like sports gambling or fantasy basketball, right? Where you're like, oh yeah, it's the same place. It comes from the same place for sure. That's a very good observation. I know I definitely have my fair share. Although I will say I do, like I've been. Another thing I enjoy watching new people like get into the draft stuff is just seeing their first hot takes that just go up in flames.
Oh my gosh! And like, I'm like, before you kind of just see it from the outside and like, oh yeah, people trash you on Twitter, like for what you say, like that someone would just literally trash you, but you're oblivious to it till it happens to you, and you're like, wait, hold on, why are you talking to me like that? Or kind of like what do you mean? How's that such a bad take? Or they'll say something blatantly wrong. And sometimes I don't even reply. I just like, let me let that sit for them.
Yeah,
let that one sit for them.
You can't reply to everyone. This is why I trash my own takes before everyone else, because like I've already done it. You can't say anything to me I haven't said to myself. Like every year I have some fucking guy. I enjoy talking about my misses because like that's, to me, I sincerely think that's probably the thing you can learn like the most from as you just continue to do it. So like I don't know if you remember Grant Riller.
Yeah, the Charleston guard.
Yeah. So I was like
decent size,
obsessed with. He was like top 10. Like I was fucking number one Grant Riller family cheerleader extraordinaire. And
those are the worst to tie your flag to.
I didn't care. I was just like,
guards are the worst to tie your flag.
I have learned this the hard way because this is my kryptonite. Is like flashy guards who are efficient but can create And it's always because they're older, and I'm always just like, oh, who cares? And then turns out it's really important. And then I remember when I knew I was in trouble, which was in that year, in that draft, they were doing like combine interviews with different players on ESPN,
Yeah.
and they were talking to Grant Riller about what his goals are and who he views himself like, and he was so timid, and he was like, yeah, I'm just hoping, I can make a team. And then I was like, oh fuck. And then
His
it
confidence.
got
Oh
worse.
my God.
It got worse. They were like, who do you see yourself off? And he was talking about like, oh, I think I can be a useful guard off the bench like Dennis Schroeder. And I was like, oh no, I've struck out and missed. That's it. He's just because
A
you
score
need
without a
right.
illogical. It has to be illogical.
You
How
have to have
confident they
irrational
are.
confidence if you're gonna make it. If you don't have that in the NBA where everybody is like, this is
Already
what I try to
irrational.
tell people. These are millionaire teenagers who are still like, actually, I'm going to get up at 6 a.m. and hit the weights for the first. Do you know what kind of human you have to be a millionaire teenager and still work that hard? You have to be basically a crazy person.
You have to be crazy. It's a
Yeah.
level of craziness.
Yeah. And Grant Riller killing it in the G League for Dallas. I hope he makes it. I will always root for him. But anytime there's any Grant Riller thing on Twitter, people just tag me automatically, and it's like a running joke. I'm not even mad at it. I'm still trying to
He
keep up
also
with him.
didn't pan out because the level of playmaker you have to be to even sniff a backup role is absurd. I mean, if you pay attention to the league, and that's another reason why I'm able to talk to people like you who are diehard Knicks fans. But I know every roster in the NBA like the back of my hand.
Right.
So I can talk to anybody's team about their team.
Right.
But I do study the Knicks a lot just because the fan base that I interact with on Twitter is
There's a lot of us.
to me.
It's a lot of us.
Yeah, it's just so hilarious to me.
Yeah, that's the other thing that makes it so easy, like for me to do this, because like the Knicks fan community is just so huge. Like I've tried to find, because I look for guests for the podcast, and of course there's lots of people like you who are just, not a fan of a particular team. But sometimes I'm like, I want to get if I wanted to get a draft person who specifically cares about the Hornets, that person, I'm sure they exist, but I haven't found them yet, right? So like it's a lot tougher. Okay, cool. So in terms of the Knicks specific stuff, we kind of been alluding to it a little bit, but the big white whale is a big wing. The problem is, we have Randall at the 4, and he's really good, so that's not going anywhere. And then Obi kind of got screwed by Randall becoming really good. So I don't really, like when I'm looking at these draft guys and they're fit, I don't really worry too much about Obi because I'm just assuming he's going to be out of here just because it's like unsustainable for him to, what are they going to do? Give him a second contract so he can play 12 minutes a game? That seems a little silly. So, so there's that. And then like you said, we have a lot of 6'5" and under talent, 6'6" and under. Well, RJ's like 6'7" now, but aside from RJ, it's, we got Quick and Deuce and
RJ's the
Jalen.
shortest 6'7" in the league.
RJ is the shortest 6'7" in the league, 100%. He's hooping lately though, so I'm pausing my RJ slander.
Dog. He's a dog. I do worry about like what his ceiling could be on a team like this.
Yeah, he's probably the hottest, the most polarizing player on the roster now. More than it used to be Randall, now it's him because of like what he can be is so variable, and some people are like get so frustrated with him, which I understand because like he can be frustrating with just how he plays, and then other people are like, well, go look at OG Anunoby or Mikal Bridges when they were 22. Like, how did they hoop? They were scoring like 8 points a game. Like, give him some. It's just he feels like he's been here forever because he has. He came into the league super young, so I go back and forth myself.
That's why you can't really say Anunoby or Bridges because he's had the chance at a large amount of usage.
Oh yeah,
and it's more or less it hasn't reached. I mean, can you really say there's much difference between his second year from Jalen Green's second year, other than maybe some injuries.
Yeah, they're definitely the two go-to examples of like high guys who just have the usage foisted on them. And really what they need to do is somebody needs to tell them to lean into other elements of their game a little bit, because they both have for different reasons. They both have, like, there's no reason RJ Barrett, if he decided, like, if somebody magically was like, I'll give you $1 billion if you average 5 assists per game, it would be very easy for him. Like,
I think he can do it. I think he does it. I do think
yeah,
he turns into I don't know if he's athletic enough to really be this 25, 5-5 guy that everybody wants
right.
him to be. He can reach that, but he would have to unlock a different part of his scoring bag.
Mm-hmm.
On top of getting better at passing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he ever flashed the ability to be this elite playmaker or elite 3-level scorer. I think what he is right now is kind of what he's probably going to be a lot of times in his career.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a really nice fourth guy, a great third.
But you don't want him being the first or second.
But if you're trying to rely on him to be, 28 a game in the playoffs, I think you're gonna be, kind of disappointed.
Yeah, that's really hard if you're not hyper athletic and you don't just strap up from 3. So that's kind of the trick with RJ and with projecting a lot of these guys, is like, especially ones who get drafted high. That's actually one of the blessings in disguise for the Knicks, is they haven't really had high picks, and obviously you prefer higher picks to lower picks, but developmentally, sometimes you can it's easier to tell the 20th pick, this is what your role is going to be, than it is to tell the 3rd pick sometimes. So, like, the downside of that is sometimes you can miscast people. Like, IQ was fucking stuck behind like a bunch of bums for the first 3 years of his career, like Alfred Payton. I shouldn't say bums, because Alec Burks is my guy. AB forever. He's a hooper forever. He'll be able to shoot until he can't fucking walk.
Definitely not
Alfred was
star
a
role
bum.
player, so.
Yeah, exactly. So for this year, we're looking at the composition of this Knicks team, and also what kind of player would be able to develop well alongside this core. And the first thing that comes to mind is they definitely don't have room for more than one guy, which is why it wasn't surprising when they used one of their 2 picks to trade for Josh Hart. Because even if you like the theoretical idea of, taking 2 swings, 2 bites at the apple, whatever metaphor you want to use, they barely got minutes for 1 rookie, let alone 2. Even Deuce is struggling to get minutes. So, like, what the hell are you going to do with 2 more rookies? So they did that, and now it's, we have guards, but if the best player available is a guard, like, do you pass on that? And that's kind of the conundrum that we're in. So I can tell you some of the guys. We can go through some of the guys that I think have been making waves as possible Knicks picks, and then you can tell me, like, good but shitty on the Knicks, or great, I love this fit with the Knicks, or whatever thoughts that come to mind. Because, like I said, you have a different perspective than Knicks Funhouse Mirrorland perspective, which is what I'm used to here. So the guys that, Dallas is kind of sucking. So our pick is getting a little better, which is nice. I hope they continue to stink up the joint, but not too much, because it's top 10 protected, and I want a rookie this year, damn it. So selfishly, I don't want Dallas to be too bad. Just right. 2 guys that I see a lot are Jet Howard and Max Lewis. They jump off a lot of pages and screens and discussions because they're tall, right? And like we were saying, the Knicks don't have 6'8" guys who can do stuff with the ball aside from Julius. Obi's talented in a lot of ways, but he's not really like a get busy type of. He's just like his own power forward, traditional style. And we're not going to get Walker from Houston. We're probably not going to get like Anthony Black. We're probably not even going to pick high enough to get like Grady Dick. So I'm trying to figure out what of these tall guys who can do things might be around somewhere in the 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 range. And I would say those are the two guys who people most often ask me about. And they both kind of had weird years where their hype was crazy high. And then both of their teams were kind of bad for different reasons. And they've just lost a little bit of popularity. So how do you feel about those two dudes? Cam, are you there? You might be muted.
Can you hear me?
Yo,
You hear me?
yo, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. Did you hear my question, or were you disconnected there?
Yeah, no, I heard you. I heard everything. I said we'll start with Max Lewis first.
Okay.
I have him in that 10 to 15 range, like a spot behind Jet.
Okay. So you still high on both of them?
Yeah, for sure. With
Because some
Max,
people are not.
yeah, I'm high on both of them. Only by default of what they are.
Mm-hmm.
I think they have a huge chance of being in like that 20-30 range because they just don't get any usage. Because neither of them, Jet's a good point of attack defender, and Max is just only solid at it. He's not
Right.
like a plus defender on the ball right now. And Jet isn't a great defender on the ball, but Max is the great athlete, and Jet isn't quite the great vertical athlete, but he has a lot of burst to be 6'8".
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of like weird prospects. That's why I have them so close. That's why I can't ever have them far from each other.
I do the same thing. Anytime I'm moving my board around, those guys are pretty much next to each other.
Yeah, I can't justify one or the other half the time. So if we want the same kind of prospect, Jet has a little more cushion because he's just he has better on ball ability on defense. But I mean, as far as offense, Max is just as good. So, but as far as Max is a prospect, him next to Barrett isn't going to reap the kind of rewards I think you guys are looking for. Due to his defense. The thing about defense and scouting is a lot of times guys don't become elite defenders. They usually become good. They usually don't even become great defenders on the ball. They didn't already come in as a really good on-ball defender. Because it doesn't get easier to play defense in the NBA, right? So that's why I kind of worry about Max next to Barrett. Because Barrett's defense tails off sometimes. But he's still a plus on-ball defender. But Plus isn't great or elite.
Right.
So in the playoffs, Plus can be very, Swiss cheese. So
yeah,
that's why I don't know about that. I don't love that fit for Max, and I definitely don't love that fit for the Knicks. I think the Knicks need a defender and a passer. I think they can get away with whatever that guy doesn't bring offensively. But as far as Max, he's a good, not great fit, and I think he can't play the 4 either. So he's going to be still sharing minutes with those 4 different 2 guards.
Yeah. That's the one thing with Max and Jet. Like, even though they are tall, they're like kind of like 2-3s in how they play, and also because they're really skinny.
Yeah, right? They're true wings.
Right. And like they're not going to be more like they're both taller than look at Grimes and Hart. Like they're both taller than Grimes and Hart, but there's no chance that those guys are more physical defenders or better rebounders than Grimes and Hart because those guys are dogs.
Those guys are dogs. So I don't let that fit for either of them because there's not enough minutes for them. So they're going to be fighting an uphill battle in the G League immediately. When they have enough playmaking and Max has enough juice off the ball, that he needs to be playing immediately and getting the ball immediately. I just don't see him getting the ball or playing immediately, or him or Jet on the Knicks.
Because people don't realize, like, he was pretty much like the 30 usage like quasi point guard, and that's where a lot of his value came from. Like you said, it wasn't from defense. So if you're taking the ball out of his hands, that's a pretty big risk. Because
Extreme.
a lot of his strengths come from that. So with Jet, at least, like, you know, he's probably a little more comfortable off the ball, just because he wasn't like doing everything for that Michigan team, right? He had his role, and a lot of it was,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes on ball creation, but sometimes off
Buffkin and
ball. So
McDaniel. So
yeah, yeah. So I want to go back to one thing you said real quick, which is the defense, which I totally get. People forget. It's easy to forget, but this Knicks team is better at offense than defense, despite Tibbs, despite the dogs that we got. So it's definitely a great point to remind fans, because we're also not good at shooting, but we just have this weird grifter offense where we're just like destroy people on the boards and draw like 1,000 fouls, so it doesn't matter. So yeah, it could be the, you know, when choosing between somebody who's a bit of a scorer and not a defender, and the opposite, this front office says we got bucket getters. We need somebody who can connect, right? And just
yeah,
tall.
you guys
That
need
would
a
be
you
the difference
guys need to
between
connect.
Grimes and Hart. Yeah,
You guys have a weird situation though.
very weird.
You have an extremely weird situation. I mean, you guys have to draft a true three. You can't be a kid that really, really, you know, his best version of himself is playing the two, like a Lewis and Jet.
That's what makes it difficult. Like, another player who has gotten mocked to the Knicks a lot, I know you're a little lower on him, is Jordan Hawkins, and I don't think it's like the mocks are, you know, the writers are thinking too hard about his fit. It's more just like, okay, they're just doing a quick mock, and he's the next best player on the board, and the Knicks have the next pick on their mock draft, so they're just like, the Knicks need shooting, seems legit, and that's it. But in reality, like, even if you do think someone who is a 2 is the best player, would like, to ensure their development, you have to walk a very fine line, and that means you're gonna go small at some points with like guys like RJ and the Hart playing the 4 a little bit even, which is not. I mean, there's some good things about that, but long term, that's not ideal. So I definitely see where you're coming from. Are there
I would
any
love to talk
other?
about Jordan Hawkins real quick.
Yeah, let's talk about Jordan Hawkins. Are they losing? Let me see. I haven't even checked the score. Oh, they're winning now.
Michigan
Okay.
State just won. They just beat Marquette.
UConn's up because they were tied at the half. And now they're winning now, but not because of Jordan Hawkins. But anyway, yeah. Well, let's talk
Their
Jordan
team is
Hawkins.
Jordan Hawkins, I can't really get behind him going in the first round. Especially if we're talking Knicks, I definitely wouldn't advise you guys to spend a first round pick on him. Because to me, he's just the consummate, you know, shooter, athlete, defender. He has some in between stuff, and he's gonna be pretty good at the rim due to being athletic. But I don't see too much difference between him and a Malik Beasley type, or a KCP type. So I don't know if I would advise you guys to swing that high on that kind of type of player in the first round. I feel like you guys could swing even higher than that, especially in this draft, where his draft is pretty loaded with just whatever you need. I wouldn't really go him in that first round. And he also doesn't help. He's only 6'5".
Right.
And he doesn't compliment RJ Barrett in the slightest.
And he doesn't really compliment like Randall or Brunson that much either. That's the other thing. Like, we could talk about RJ, but those are the all-stars. So
yeah,
or even quickly, like
he definitely doesn't. He's definitely not an elite enough defender to compliment Brunson, and he's or Randall, who also needs defense to be complimented. And you also need some size, low-key, because Randall isn't a huge 4.
Right, he's strong, but he's not tall or long.
Prototype 4. You know, Randall's a 6'9", big body 4, but he's not a 6'11" guy.
Yeah, he's not protecting the rim as a weak side 4.
He's not defending it nearly good enough. So you guys do need like a specific type of player, or you guys could just default to getting a new 5.
Yeah, I mean, Mitch is great and iHeart is great, but like, if Joel Embiid decides I've had enough of Philly, then like I'm sure the Knicks front office would be fine considering such a proposition. So RJ and Mitch, you know, we love them while they're here, but neither of them are so amazing that provided the right trade offer comes, I'll drive them to the airport myself. But as far as this class goes, okay, so we're kind of, I'm seeing the Cam vision right now for if you were the GM of the Knicks. There's like some, there's guys like, they're very different prospects, but they're also similar in some ways. There's guys like Derek Whitehead and Julian Strother who are taller and shooters. Derek can defend a little, but even those guys are not. They're like a little bit taller than the guys on the Knicks, right? Like Strother's 6'7", 6'8". Derek is maybe 6'6", 6'7".
Right.
Both of them are strong. So they're not going to get punked out there, but and both would bring the shooting, but I don't know if they bring that level of complementary defense or that connective passing that I think you're envisioning. Would you say that's right?
Yeah, for sure. Just for this specific Knicks team, though.
Yeah,
And this
yeah.
is just assuming that you guys retain one of, or probably two of like IQ, Hart.
Yeah, those two ain't going nowhere.
Right, and Grimes.
They getting
You guys
paid.
love Grimes.
Right.
You guys love Grimes. So your two spot is just so locked up.
Right.
And it's not like you're gonna draft a backup point guard.
Right.
And you're not in. So the kind of three that you need to play next to RJ, if you really want to start that RJ, because now it sounds like you guys are trying to go RJ at the 2 so you can find the 3.
Nah, I don't think they'll ever go RJ at the 2. They usually have him out there with whoever's playing point guard and then IQ or Grimes. And if Grimes is playing, or if IQ is playing point guard, then they might have that's when it might get like they might get mixy where it's like Hart, RJ, who's the 2, who's the 3. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I think usually it's pretty clear the Knicks have prioritized having some shooting from that 2 spot to go with RJ, and then also because RJ, like you said, he's a solid defender, but he's not the kind of guy who you're like IQ and Grimes are fucking beastly defenders. Like RJ's fine, but he's not like those guys. So
Grimes is approaching elite defender. And IQ is approaching like great point of attack defender.
Yeah.
So it's weird because if you got because the fact you're saying you want RJ playing more just next to another wing lets me know that the Lewis and Howard thing can work.
That's what I think the vision is
with IQ and Grimes.
Yeah, I mean,
IQ, Grimes, or Hart.
It's funny, like Grimes starts games, but he's behind IQ and Hart in like the overall depth chart as far as closing goes. Like a lot of times we'll be playing and people on Twitter will be like, "Yo, what happened to Grimes? Like, why is he not coming back in?" But it's like you said, it's tough because Emmanuel Quickly is really fucking good, and you want him to play like he can play point guard, but guess what? Like him and Brunson are the 2 best guards, so you probably want them to play together too. So
yeah, even if you guys didn't draft the 2, you guys got to make a decision because, like you just said, IQ is taken away from some of the offense that Grimes has in him.
Yeah,
and so now you're getting like half a player half the time.
Yeah, and that's always the rub with the Knicks is like they draft guys who buy into their roles a lot, but their roles are often a fraction of what they're capable of. And Obi is the best example of that. Like the guy has
Obi's a scorer.
He has 10 roll man possessions on the whole year, which is like insane.
He's really
like
a true
crime.
Short roll scorer. That's what he is.
And somebody else will unlock that, but like that's not going to be us. So looking at
I would say as a quick aside, I would say I would draft Lewis or Howard if they're there, and just sell it as they're gonna play next to. There's gonna be another wing for you guys to play with, but really in my head, I'm just waiting on some value to come through. That way, I could just start running Brunson, the rookie, and then Barrett, and then do something with Hart, IQ, or Grimes.
Yeah,
I mean, would disguise it.
I think that's how they're thinking about it. Like, and that's the thing. Like, you of course have to draft considering fit of the current team, but the team, these guys are 18, 19, 20 years old. Hopefully, when they're getting very good and they're turning 22, 23, this team is going to look different, right? Like we're good. Nobody wants to play us in the first round, but we don't have like a MVP type, right? You still want to get that guy. And that means some people are going to have to get traded to get that guy. So you have to be like, who would be good to have waiting to rise, to step up or to just be a part of that trade package.
The taller guy.
Mm-hmm.
Usually
Exactly.
the taller guy. You don't be wrong. You usually don't mess up if you go to the taller guy.
Exactly. So it'll definitely be interesting to see which of the current crop is still here in a year or two. Looking at other guys in this draft who have a little bit of size and a little bit of versatility. I mean, I know you're one of the people who is high on Leonard Miller, and I've been watching the G League to just catch up because I watched them in the very beginning of the year, and then I kind of just I watched them back when it was like Scoot versus Wemby, and then college basketball started, and I was like, all right, I'll come back to Ignite later. And I've been watching Leonard Miller and also Sissoko, and both of them are
legit risers.
yeah, I've been very impressed. Leonard, he just moves. His shot is like, that's a whole nother podcast, but everything else is like he's moving well, and he's when I watched him last year in the combine, he was just lost, which makes sense because he didn't really play he was playing with random like public Canadian high school kids, and
he didn't play high level ball
so he was lost out there. Now he doesn't look lost, which is amazing. And Sissoko, he's definitely at the like, I can do so many things, I'm just gonna try wild shit part of his developmental phase, which I don't mind.
Ignite was perfect for him.
Exactly.
What a decision.
Like a lot of his turnovers are like, okay, you just tried the wildest pass ever, but I'm not mad at it because it would have looked really cool. I feel you. And then the other thing that stood out to me about him is like, I joked on Twitter that, in pictures of him, he's listed at like 6'6", 6'5", and he has 6'8". A really, 6'8". He's listed at 6'8".
No, he's listed at probably 6'6". He's really like 6'8" though.
He got a long neck, so he's like a fraudulent 6'8". But he's also like, he's huge. I was Googling something
he's like
listed.
He should be pushing 220, I believe now.
Something said 175 pounds that I Googled, and I was like, get the fuck out of here. Like, there's no way he's 100. He looks closer to RJ Barrett than he does to like some undersized guard or wing.
Now he's probably around 205, like hovering around there, 210.
And a strong 205
by the time it's draft time.
he's like trucking, and it's the G League, right? So like we can talk about like, oh yeah, these guys didn't make the league, but they're still adults for the most part.
I love to go on my slight G League rant.
Yeah, let's do it.
So my thing about the G League is people go, oh, but he's in the G League. It's like, well, you actually look at what the G League is. Half of the roster is a bunch of rotational players in the NBA because they always get called up because someone's always injured. Correct. So there's all NBA players have played in multiple NBA games. Then the other half of the roster is some of the most elite college players to ever touch college.
Like Grant Riller.
Right. And then there's some of the most elite young prospects in the world.
Like not Grant Riller.
So I just and Grant Riller is a good example because he's one of the most elite college players at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? He was in the middle of a G League rotation. That's how high the level the level competition in G League is probably only second to like some Euro leagues. Like only few Euro leagues could probably stand up to what the G League actually is.
Yeah, so I mean, it's one of those things that Knicks fans were talking a lot about this last year because before Deuce was getting minutes with the real team, him and Jericho Sims would play for Westchester, and they were just destroying teams, right? Like,
right.
They look like Stockton and Malone down there. Like Deuce was literally the two best guards in the G League last year were probably Deuce and Saban Lee, who's a little bit older, but he's like your classic quadruple A kind of
Yeah,
guard.
for the Pistons, yeah.
Yeah, and both of them were like a zillion points per game, 10 assists per game, like whatever. And then Jericho Sims, every game he played was like 9 of 9 from the field, 15 rebounds or whatever.
Yep.
And you know, like I understand why they sent Deuce down there because one, they didn't have the minutes, and then two, he in West Virginia, they had to reprogram him a little bit because he was very mid-range heavy. They had like an old school kind of offense, not a lot of pick and roll, and they pretty much told him and Sims like, y'all go run like 30 pick and rolls per game and just Deuce, you just chuck from three and break those old habits. And you know, it worked. So
It worked perfectly.
that's how you're supposed to use the G League. And but yeah, like, and then to bring it back to the Ignite, like Leonard Miller and Sissoko, they're pretty young prospects for this class. And
now they're young. They went from mid-level Canadian ball. I don't even know what Sissoko was playing before he came onto the team on the Hoop Summit. And now they're what? Sissoko is giving guys 24, 5-5, and Leonard just had an 18-20 game. I mean, that kind of stuff is unprecedented.
Yeah, and we're at the cycle in the G League Ignite's existence where like, okay, when guys who are going to be top 5 picks commit to the Ignite, then that's not straightforward, but more straightforward than like, what do other prospects like? We've had like Isaiah Todd and a couple of other like less heralded prospects, but not as many where you're like, I'm pretty sure they're first rounders, even if they're not like, we're going to tank for them or something like Jalen Green or John Kuminga or something like that. So it's super fascinating to me to look at where these guys are going and see how much of their being on lower on mocks is just because people haven't watched them play, right? And then inevitably they'll show up at the combine and or in workouts, like right, like these teams have 3-on-3 workouts or whatever, and they'll probably give guys issues. And then maybe they'll rise up. But the thing is, this draft, like you said, is that middle of the draft. There's probably like 20 dudes who could have a good argument for, being the 16th pick, depending on what teams are looking for. So it's definitely a bit of a bloodbath out there. But what do you think of those two guys? Because they're wings, right? Like Sissoko's a little shorter, but he plays bigger than his size because he's so jacked. Like, I feel like they might be sleeper types, but they can't shoot. But does it matter?
So Miller is not a great seamless fit for the Knicks, but he would be a great player to have play a lot of rotational minutes. Sissoko is actually the clean fit. He can play right next to RJ. RJ has plenty of handle to complement whatever Sissoko doesn't have off the dribble. And Sissoko has plenty of connectivity passing.
And he can hit spot ups. Like, he's not a bad shooter.
And he's going to hit his freaking spot ups because he's played the G League.
Yeah.
Which is an NBA line, which people underestimate.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, they're shooting in the low 30s. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Jaden Hardy shot in the low 30s. I don't think anyone thinks he can't shoot.
Yeah, and Sissoko shot, like, it's not like Leonard's where it looks weird. Like, it looks fine.
Leonard's is a little weird because it's a push shot, but I'm not mad at it because he's 6'11".
Right, that's bonus.
That's just a bonus. Like, it was whatever. And then he has enough ball skills that he grab and goes, but he also creates in the half court. Miller is a sleeper star, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Sissoko could be that really special role player that every team would just love to have.
Like Josh Hart.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if Josh Hart was hiked up to 6'8".
Yeah, that's a pretty legit role player. I mean they're different, but like, I mean, OG Anunoby's like, he's not a passer, but
he's not the passer. I wouldn't compare him to Sissoko. I would compare Sissoko to like a man. You have to really dig deep into crates. So I'm not going to dig too deep into crates. I'm going to say his game is similar to what Dyson Daniels would bring you.
Yeah, and I know there was Dyson had a lot of fans among the Knicks internet because the same
I
reasons.
I thought you guys should have grabbed him.
I mean, we weren't. He was gonna be gone. What did he get picked? Like
No, yeah, I'm not saying that you guys should have got him in the draft. I'm just saying like
just in general.
I always have mock him to you guys.
Yeah.
As a great fit.
Yeah. I definitely see that. I'm looking at some other taller guys now, and like there's again like this draft, you have a bunch of the 6'6" kind of dudes. So like Jalen Hood-Schifino's 6'6", right? Riley Kugel about 6'6". Colby Ware's older, but he's like 6'6". So there's not quite so much in terms of the tall wings who like could credibly play the 4 next to RJ. That's why the height of Max, Jet, and Leonard kind of jumped out to me. There's like Flip, but he's kind of like Obi in that he's his own like weird thing where he's basically a 4. So does anybody else from this class kind of jump out as like who you would have your eye on if you were in the Knicks front office? Like there's a lot of talent, but it feels like if you go for the shooting, you might be giving up the size. If you go for the size, you might be giving up something else. So then it becomes a question of what do you feel as the Knicks, like what are you most comfortable developing, right? That kind of stuff. You might be on mute again. There you go.
You hear me?
Yeah.
My fault. I was looking at my board. Yeah, there's some sleeper fits. There's some sleeper fits for the Knicks. The first one I would jump out at is G.G. Jackson.
Woo! I'm too scared, bro.
I don't think enough people like him.
I fucking was obsessed with him, and now like I just got terrified. But his situation is so crazy. So you're right. We should talk about Gigi because, like, I know the stats are gross right now, but the talent is there.
If you actually deep dive into his stats, they're not gross for an 18-year-old at all in the SEC. They're not. They actually look pretty. They look too good compared to what Imani Bates looked like as an 18-year-old in the AAC.
I mean, Imani that's a whole nother. he needed a little seasoning in a way, even more than Gigi.
Exactly. So I don't get the knocks on Gigi as much because he is 18 and he just had multiple games where legit SEC teams with legit NBA talents could not stay in front of the kid and could not stop him from creating an impact in multiple ways on the court. And he's 6'10". He's such a great fit for the Knicks. You might be got to push this because I don't think enough people like him. I think he's false. I really do. I think he falls.
He might, because you're right. Teams are risk averse, right? Understandably, right? Because like you said, everybody got to keep their job. And he's a scary player to pick.
He's a scary player to pick, but you guys have the luxury of picking him because now you can just throw him in there next to RJ and whatever you want. As far as the guards, or he can play the 4. He's a rare guy that we can talk about that can play the 4.
Tibbs will probably murder him after like a week, but once he gets used to that, then I can see him getting some spot minutes.
Comes into play is the Tibbs thing. Tibbs isn't a great developer.
He's a decent developer, but you gotta earn the trust first, and that's the thing. That's the thing that is tough for me to envision with Gigi, because like.
Yeah, he's not going to earn the trust. Like it's going to be downs. It's going to be downs with him.
Right. Like, is he going to give you better minutes at the 4 next year than Josh Hart or RJ Barrett? Probably not.
Probably more than RJ.
But even if he's taller, it's just like he's just so young that I don't know. It's hard for young guys to be like positives in their rookie year unless you like a real hooper.
He's up there with the real hooper.
He definitely is part of.
He has
the
an
real
elite handle.
He does have elite handle. At his size, absolutely.
That's an instant green flag. That's an instant suit. Like, oh, every superstar look like that ever.
he just gotta I think he's one of the. Actually, you know what? If I had to pitch GG on the Knicks, I think he's one of the guys who would. We mentioned that the Knicks take their kids and make sure they know their roles and make them become masters at a few specific things before letting them kind of expand. Yeah. And that might be the sort of thing where it's good for Gigi, where it's like, yo, just hit your spot ups, play defense and rebound. If you don't do those two things, we'll take you right back out and send you to Westchester. Like
exactly. So I don't the fit for him hypothetically sounds great. But as far as is it gonna work operationally and organizationally for you guys, I don't know, because a big part of his game is I need the ball.
Yeah. Well,
so
this
year
he
might not get that. He might not get that leeway with Tibbs. Tibbs isn't that kind of guy.
Well, let me look at what Tibbs did with Obi, right? Like he was like turned him into fucking corner 3-point specialist. So, I mean,
yeah, but Obi's also a guy that he flashed some real face up ball stuff.
That's what I'm saying.
Like closeout stuff that he can't show right now. And I'm afraid that could be Gigi. And if you do that, you might as well not even get him.
Yeah. That's the main thing I'm scared. I don't think they would give enough rope, because you're gonna need to let him kind of.
He's 18.
Yeah.
Every problem we have with him is just is maturity based.
Right.
No 18-year-old has ever looked consistent on D.
Right.
No 18-year-old ever had consistent effort, and no 18-year-old had consistent enough body language. He's 18. Right. He went from playing EYBL to a month later he started cooking SEC players.
Yeah.
I mean, he went from the NBA PA top 100, and then he started giving Missouri 20. I just found that extremely impressive.
Yeah, if they really did want to swing for the fences, like the team
That's the swing. Yeah, he's the swing. I would say he's the swing.
The analog I use is there was a time once the Nuggets finally figured out what they had with Jokic, and they also already had Murray, and Michael Porter Jr. dropped because of injury concerns. They said, fuck it, we're swinging, and it worked because they were so good already that if that pick didn't work out, it didn't really set them back much. So you could argue that, like, with this pick, just like last year with the Knicks trading out completely, like, if whoever they pick becomes whatever, just doesn't work out, fine. Who cares? You still have not only your own picks moving forward, but other teams' picks. So, so there's definitely a good arguments for this to be the year when they swing for the fences, and then if you have to send him to Westchester a little bit, whatever. Like, it worked for Deuce, so we know they can run. We know they run their G League team well, so that wouldn't be the worst thing either.
Oh, I mean, sending Gigi to Westchester is just gonna put every two guard on that roster in the hot seat.
I mean, that's part of the deal with this roster anyway. Like, nobody's promised minutes except for Jalen and Julius. That's it.
Yeah, so it's going to put everybody on the perimeter except for Brunson on the hot seat, because this is going to turn into, all right, well, now who are we going to play next to the kid? Because he's 6'10" and he's destroying the G League. He's going to destroy the G League. He's going to destroy the G League. The way he played against grown men, essentially, in the SEC, it was almost too impressive. He had bad games. He's 18. His good games, he was having player of the year good games against like Kobe Brown and Demoy Hodge and Isaiah Mobley against Missouri, and against those wings and those guards on Auburn. And he's killing. He's just killing NBA prospect. You know, got up with Furman, Jalen Slauson.
Mm-hmm.
Like these are legit NBA talents that he honestly, every time he's on the floor, his good games just look better than theirs.
His flashes are just crazy. It's just when he gets into that like 18-year-old, like, and it's
he gets into that 18-year-old, it turns you off. It's like, you can either get turned off or you can see the beauty in it.
Yeah, I'll tell you, he's one of those dudes. I mean, the interviews and all that are important for everybody, but he's had such an odd path for a high-ranked player because he was basically like a big man prospect. And then
he was a 5. Then he was
yeah,
like, oh, he could play a 4. He has handle for some reason this year.
right. His handle just got amazing out of
and
nowhere.
Then the NBA PA came around. He's like, yo, he's taking everybody in the gym off the dribble.
Yeah. So you gotta do your homework a little bit. I'm trying to think. We're about an hour in. All right, so I think I definitely got the Cam vision here. The only one podcast vision for the Knicks. Are there any other players who jump out as like who the Knicks should consider, even if not necessarily, as a swing for the fences? Maybe they trade out or trade down or whatever. Anybody else who you think would be helpful for this Knicks team?
Do you guys have a second round pick?
Not yet, but knowing us, we'll probably end up with one because they always do that shit.
Yeah, some quick little sleepers, some quick little sleeper picks. I would love for you guys if you guys trade down or you guys picked in the second round. Like we said, it's the city Sissoko. I think he really could help you guys. What he does early too. I think Tim will like his floor. I really do.
He's high on my list. City. I'm gonna have to watch some more Ignite games, man, because I don't think he's gonna last to the second round if he keeps this shirt up.
He's probably not, man. He's probably not, because his passing and his passing flash, his defense, the spot up shooting, it's enticing. I would imagine a team does swing on that. That's why another guy I would tell you guys to look at would be Chris Murray.
Oh yeah, he's got a lot of fans. He's definitely checks a lot of boxes for the Knicks.
Oh my God, he checks all kinds of boxes.
Yeah, he can. You don't have to worry about maturity. He can come in and hoop tomorrow. Chris got some big fans, and I know he's going to be high on their board because he brings the size, the defense, and the shooting, which is, like we were saying before, most of the tall guys don't bring all of those things, and he may not be the sexy pick, but he might be the right pick. And he's different from Keegan, but they're both good, so I could definitely see it. And he could play next to both RJ and Julius, which I think is something you can't really say of a lot of the other guys in this class. All right. I think we could wrap there. Got a good idea of who you like for the squad in this coming year. Look forward to seeing your board as we get closer to draft time and just taking notes, and I'm sure we'll have you back on the pod soon. But until then,
I would love to.
Do you want to tell folks again real quick where they can find you?
You can find us on Apple Podcasts at Only One Podcast, or Spotify Podcast at Only One Podcast. And of course, you can find us at Twitter at Only One Podcast with 2 T's. Yeah, man, we just talked draft, getting into the NFL draft, real deep into the NBA draft. I love talking to team specific pods like this. I really do. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, of course. I don't know shit about the NFL, but I'm always happy to talk about the Knicks and the NBA draft. So I'm sure we'll connect again. Everybody else, thank you for tuning in. We got some good draft content coming out over March Madness and afterwards. It's been a slow trickle, but soon we're going to open that fire hydrant for y'all. And we got some good, fun articles on the way, so stay tuned for that. And on that note, we will see you next time.